importance to meter an hour. Nothing to be so fussy about. इतनी कोई बड़ी कोई बुरी बात नहीं हुई. तो टाइम का फॉर्मूला जो which we discussed previously is applied, and that's it. आंसर comes out to be in hours. Hours से उन्होंने वैसी रीडेबल बनाने के लिए मिनट्स में कन्वर्ट किया. मैक्सिमम एरिया दैट कैन बी इरीगेटेड, उसका फॉर्मूला है ए मैक्स इज इक्वल टू डिस्चार्ज बाय एफ. अगेन it is easily understandable. Everything is easily understandable. Simple numerical. Okay, now comes the turn of check flooding. Check flooding is actually an improvement upon basin flooding. Basin flooding in border flooding, what we did in border flooding, we made strips. अब इन strips को further divide करें. ये basin check flooding है, ठीक है. The borders are connected by a connecting levee. The borders, the already made borders, are connected, are crossed, are traversed by a connecting levee in order to increase the number of strips. So, क्या होगा इसका नतीजा क्या होगा? Efficiency होगी. Irrigation में efficiency आएगी. Check flooding. The borders levees are connected by a cross levee in order to increase the number of strips and improve irrigation efficiency. Each patch should be of 0.2 to 0.8 hectares, fit for both highly permeable and less permeable soil. It's very good. Check flooding should be adopted. तो ये सेल्फ मेड डायग्राम है. ये डायग्राम्स बड़ी मेहनत से बनाए गए हैं. ये हैचिंग ये सब कुछ हो सकता है बात लोगों के लिए आसान हो, लेकिन only to give you an impression that all this lecture has been prepared with high input. So बाकी पढ़ना आपका काम है, आप पढ़ें इनको. ये real time situation is posted over here. Okay, basin flooding. What is basin flooding? Basin flooding, देखें ये सारी flooding की types आ रही हैं. What we do in basin flooding, it is a special kind of irrigation, or it's a special kind of check flooding in which water is transported to trees directly. किस तरह? इस तरह. And you have got a main ditch, and on right and left you have got subsidiary ditches, and subsidiary ditches then goes and fall into basins. Basins क्या है? Small depressions है, and in basins we plant trees. तो मैंने एक दरख्त लगाया, बाकी दरख्त मैंने नहीं लगाए, लेकिन in all the basins trees are planted, and this method is fit for fruit trees, so that you can grow fruits in a water efficient way and without disturbing the soil of the field too much, and that's it. This is called basin flooding. Okay? So all the methods have been discussed that were related to flooding. Okay? I discussed all the methods: free flooding, border flooding, check flooding, basin flooding. This have been discussed even before. Even मैंने आपको एक paper pencil lecture भी दिया था, तो लेकिन it's just a revision. This is a more beautiful way of presenting all the previous lectures. So मैं वो lectures हटाऊंगा और ये lectures आपको portal पे नज़र आएंगे अभी, along with slides भी मैं भेजूंगा. और lecture 1 की भी जो slide है उसको भी देख लें, उसमें भी एक diagram एक slide मैंने add किया है for your easiness. ठीक है. So now ये दरख्त वाला part हो गया, basin flooding. Now comes the turn of furrow irrigation method. What is furrow? Furrow is a small ditch, as it is shown in the diagram over here. It is a narrow, deep ditch जो कि ज़मीन के अंदर खोदा जाता है, and it is of depth 8 to 30 centimeter. In this method, instead of flooding the entire field, now this comes into change category. जो flooding category थी वो that is over now. In this method, instead of flooding the whole field, 1/5 or 1/3 of the land is wetted. 1/3 or 1/5 of the land is wetted. It results in less evaporation and less deforming of soil. ठीक है? It results in less evaporation. I'm going to improve this slide. You don't worry about it. ये मैं correct करके आपको अभी भेजूंगा इसके साथ, इस video lecture के साथ. It results in less evaporation and a less deforming of soil. Soil अथल पथल नहीं होता. ना ही आपका खेत जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा डिसलोकेट हो जाता है पानी की वजह से या मडी हो जाता है. Only what you have to do is you have to introduce water into small ditches, narrow ditches that are provided between rows of crops, and water travels through these ditches, and no need of transporting water from the ditches to the crops. Water itself will seep to the root zone, ठीक है, because the ditches are quite deep. जो आपके ditches हैं वो इतने गहरे हैं कि वो पानी खुद ब खुद seep through करके roots को दे देंगे. You don't have to introduce water into the field like we used to do here. देखिए यहाँ we introduced water into basin, we introduced water into strips, we introduced water into strips, we introduced water into the right and left rows of crops by free flooding. So यहाँ पे कोई introduction नहीं है. Water will itself go to the root zone, will find its way to the root zone through seepage, because this furrow, this ditch is quite deep. ठीक है, the furrow is, in this method instead of flooding the entire field, 1/5 is irrigated, and furrows are यहाँ पे देखिए, furrows are narrow field ditches 8 to 30 centimeter in depth, and they are provided between rows of plants. Their length is up to the length of the field. उनकी लंबाई कितनी है? जितनी फील्ड की लंबाई है. But make sure कि you make a break in it. यानी इतनी लंबा फरो ना दे that goes throughout for 400 meter, because in that situation, if the soil is too porous, so water will get absorbed in the initial reach, and in the tail reach, what you will be left with less amount of water. ठीक है, तो जरा सा इन फरोज के दरमियान एक ब्रेक लिया है. They carry irrigation water with the purpose of seeping water directly to the root zones of the rows of plants and crops. They shouldn't be too long, as the later reach जो tail end है will not receive adequate irrigation. बस ये सारे तो आपको हमने प्रेजेंट कर दिया है, अब आप पढ़ें. And don't complain on this online method. We are doing our best to, और ये है भी बहुत theoretical interesting topic. अभी जो आने वाले the coming slides या the coming lectures will be far more technical, but the technicality will be very slight, and there are very small numericals involved in this subject. No lengthy calculations like in RCC or in structures. Water subjects are always easy. Only fluid 2 was a bit tough. Sprinkler irrigation method. In sprinkler irrigation method, what we do, we sprinkle water. फुआरों के जरिए पानी right and left पे sprinkle किया जाता है. ज़ाहिरी बात है, for this purpose we will be needing electricity, we will be needing pumps. So let me go through the passage. In this method of water is applied to crops in spray form. It's like an artificial rain. There is a network of pipes and pumps that bring about this rain, and the method is very good but expensive. It's good but it is expensive. ज़ाहिरी बात है, आपने you have to provide electricity and pumps. It's fit for desert like areas of Pakistan. Yeah, you can, where surface irrigation is not possible, where large amount of water or canals are not possible, so you can provide sprinkler irrigation. But who is going to provide it? I mean, economy is involved. But ours is a poor country. It needs proper design and technical operation. Technical operation is required. Regular maintenance, क्योंकि nozzles इसके block हो जाते हैं. That's why it's popular in USA. The entry of silt should be hindered into its system. यानी आपने मिट्टी को रोकना है इसको enter होने में, because the silt choke the sprinkler equipment, because the spraying equipment is blocked by the silt. अच्छा, now there is a heading. Conditions which are favorable for this method. When topography is irregular and you cannot level it. आपकी topography या ज़मीन irregular है, you cannot level it, and you cannot provide surface irrigation also, because in surface irrigation you have to do leveling, you have to provide gravity flow, यानी आपने ज़मीन को ऊंची से पस्ती की तरफ लेके जाना है ताकि whole of the irrigation water could be uniformly distributed. If you have got irregular topography, then this method is good. If soil is fragile, this method is good, because fragile soil means it's erodible and it gets dislocated, thereby deforming the whole of the field. When soil is excessive, and also it hampers the sowing procedure. आपके बीज सारे निकल आते हैं ना, कि आपकी soil erode हो जाए. When soil is excessively permeable and uniform water distribution by surface irrigation is not possible, a sprinkler is the way. When water table is high, अगर ज़ीर ज़मीन पानी की सतह इतनी बुलंद है that if you give surface irrigation that could contribute to the raising of the water table and thus cause water logging. So ये point भी important है. If the water table is already high, if you are in danger zone, waterlogged danger zone, then you must adopt sprinkler irrigation. When area is such that seasonal requirement is low, coastal area में पानी की requirement low होती है, तो you can easily provide sprinkler irrigation. It's fit for crops that require humidity control like tobacco. It's fit for crops that require shallow roots. ऐसे पौधे जिनके roots shallow होते हैं, shallow root crops, sprinkler irrigation is the way. It's fit for crops that require frequent irrigation. Yani it's fit for crops that require that requires not high, that requires regular and frequent, that requires frequent irrigation. Okay, I will mend this point. आपके जो slides हैं उसमें ये सारे यानी बास क्रॉप्स ऐसे होते हैं कि उसमें पानी की ज़रूरत इतनी नहीं होती, लेकिन उसको आपने बार बार पानी देना होता है. तो बार बार पानी आप कहाँ, आपका नंबर तो नहीं आता वाटर कोर्सेज पे. वाटर कोर्सेज की तो अपनी नंबरदारी होती है. एक दफ़ा यू गेट योर टर्न, द नेक्स्ट टर्न कम्स आफ्टर 3 to 4 days. So how, though you can store that water, though you can supplement your irrigation by tube well procedure, but let's suppose you require very less amount of water but very frequently. So for that purpose, sprinkler is good. What are limitations? Limitations are expensive. This method is very expensive. Yeah, electricity, pipes, maintenance, everything. And it's not good for high temperature zones. For hot zones and for high wind areas, this is not good because wind disturbs the sprinkle pattern. And it's not for crops that require deep irrigation. जिस तरह के जो पैडी क्रॉप है, यहाँ पे तस्वीर मैंने दी है, शोले हैं कि चावल हैं या जो भी पैडी क्रॉप. For that paddy crop where excessive amount of surface irrigation is required, सही बात है, sprinkler is not good. Drip irrigation method. In drip irrigation method, this is the last method. बस खत्म हो गई slides. In drip irrigation method, what we do is that we provide water to each and every crop directly, as clear from the photographs. Each and every crop, whether you do it on surface or whether you do it underground. Whether you do it on surface or whether you do it in underground. Underground ज़्यादा efficient है because it gives water directly to the root zone. And in surface you give water to each individual plant. Water is protected in pipes, right? So water is very efficiently used and it is protected against sunlight. The drip irrigation method is fit for hot areas. And Israel has been benefiting a lot from it. And now Arab countries are also benefiting from drip irrigation method. But it's expensive. This is the end of